Today, I'm gonna go over some recent news, mainly from May 2025. So I'm gonna be executive orders that Trump has implemented, news about the impeachment process that people been trying to impeach Trump again. Probably not go anywhere, but we'll see. Texas Republicans going more extreme with people who are trying to have an abortion outside the state, and House Democrats situation again in Congress in general about just besides impeachment, all the issues we've been having in Congress. So first thing I want to talk about is for May 14, 2025, House Democrats furious as Congressman launches waste of time impeachment proceeding against Trump. You can say that, but honestly, I think it's better to do something than nothing. I think it's worse when you don't do anything and just wait until it might be the right time. At least I'd rather people do something. Delay, make it difficult to pass things in Congress, make it hard for Trump to do something more directly. That's what Democrats can do when they don't have the majority in Congress and they don't have a Democrat president. That's one way to do it. Republicans do all the time. Even when Democrats have slight take over, they try as hard as possible to make everything hard to pass. So if Republicans do it, why can Democrats do it? Now the problem is the status quo corporate Democrats. That's the reason why. Because Trump should be impeached a long time ago, and we know it was because the Republicans in Congress didn't want to. They could have in the Senate resolved this issue, and it's 100% not work now. That ain't happening. But it's just some people are getting annoyed that Trump keeps getting away with things. So I think it's a good thing to at least put out there that he could be impeached. If Republicans join forces with the Democrats, they could get rid of Trump, J.D. Vance, and his entire administration, and we can just start over. Just so we don't have the same crap over and over. Like we never had such level of just really bad presidency as Trump in recent time. Even Bush, as bad as he was not as bad as Trump, to say the least. So this is just some Democrats in Congress, mainly the status quo. All the Democrats have a problem with impeachment process if unless it can be bulletproof, certain that will pass. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a good thing. It's better than doing nothing. Next, I want to talk about is from May 1st, 2025. Texas Republicans move to prosecute abortion patient and criminalize travel. So Texas have been trying to find ways to go after people trying to have an abortion, but even outside of the state, which is again against the Constitution. You're allowed to travel to other states, state lines, state borders, and you don't have to have an abortion in your specific state only. So if in Texas you want to have an abortion in New York, you're allowed to go to New York to have an abortion there. Texas cannot legally go after you because the Constitution protects you to travel to other states and do whatever you want in those states. You don't need to show Texas why you're going to another state for. What's the reason? You don't have to do that. There'll be fascism, dictatorship, which is what Texas want to do. They want to criminally charge anyone who's a Texas resident trying to have an abortion outside of Texas. Now, if you're having an abortion in Texas and it's illegal there, obviously, you can get criminally charged. Unfortunately, I don't agree with that, but that's the case. But if you're outside of Texas, it shouldn't matter. As long as you're doing us in a state that illegal now. This is why the U.S. Supreme Court 100% wants to get rid of state rights in terms of abortion rights. They don't want states to have the right to choose if they want women to have the right for abortion now, which is wrong, but that's something the U.S. Supreme Court has been trying really heavily to get rid of that indefinitely. We'll see how that goes. But on its face value, Senate Bill 2180 is already extreme, in which it is. It expands Texas bounty hunter, which is something I talked about before early this year, if I'm not mistaken. Bounty hunter law to basically allow private citizens to go after anyone who manufacture abortion pills, things like that, or bring them to another state. It's horrific. To file $100,000 lawsuits, it's a lot. It's a horrific bill that shouldn't even be legal. It's incredibly bad, and it destroys women's rights. But again, we have plenty of Republican women still who vote for Trump, so they vote for this. It is what it is. Now, well, the thing is that they try to really go after women who are trying to have abortion outside of Texas, and that's where things get more constitutionally tricky because you're protected by the Constitution. It shouldn't be tricky, but for a lot of Republicans, they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be allowed to have abortion in another state that's legal as long as you're resident of the state." But if you're not having an abortion in the state, they're not doing anything wrong. If they have an abortion in New York, New Jersey, Cali, Washington, what does it matter? As long as it's not in your state. They want to control women, and that's the whole point. But the Constitution protects the right to travel to any state. So they trying to find ways to prevent that as long as you live in Texas. What is going to happen, a lot of people are going to move out of Texas, potentially. People who are able to financially able to move out, they're going to leave Texas, which is going to be a lot of women, potentially. I wouldn't be surprised. So you're going to be stuck in that state that's going to be filled with people who are ignorant, don't have the highest paying jobs, and are very religious. But the people who don't want to deal with that, they're going to leave the state. Now, it's also a problem because then Texas would never turn blue, would never be left in at all. But I can blame them. I will move out of Texas, Florida, Alabama, etc. I don't want to stay in Tennessee either, and so on. I get it. If you have the financial means to do so, you get out of the state. And if you're really able to, you move out of the U.S. completely if you can afford to do so and live comfortably somewhere else. Texas Republicans want to criminalize living in the state for abortion care, which again is against the Constitution. But because of what Trump is doing, and he constantly has violated the Constitution multiple times, now governors of these red states are trying to do the same to see how far they can push it and use the U.S. Supreme Court to back them up. In case some obscure interpretation of the Constitution as a way to allow religious discrimination to continue to happen, like removing people's rights to have an abortion, even when they're doing it outside the state that's illegal. Doesn't make sense to me. If you're doing it in New Jersey, you're doing it in Cali, you're doing it in Washington, etc., who cares? There shouldn't be a problem. They're not doing it on state, but they don't care about state rights. They care about controlling women. That's the whole point. So any patient who escaped the state for viral healthcare could be brought up on charges. How? That doesn't make sense. How are you going to be able to do this without going against the Constitution? So could the family members who drove them there, the friend who lent, this patient, be booked, who booked a hotel and all get in trouble? We will see. Again, I think this is incredibly illegal because against the Constitution, but your Supreme Court is not gonna protect your rights. You want things to change, you gotta get rid of people in power. You got, of course, you gotta make sure you don't elect Republicans into power, and you make sure when you're electing, you're voting for Democrats, they're left-wing Democrats, the progressives. In another way of saying that, in other words, vote for progressives, which are never going to be Republicans. There's no such thing as progressive Republicans. A lot of the so-called progressive Republicans, they think that just giving abortion rights makes you progressive, even though in many other countries, Democrats are considered very right-wing. There, because the Democrat Party is a right-wing party. They're not even a left-leaning party overall. They're left-leaning people within the party, but the party itself is just a light Republican party. That's really it. Next, I want to talk about is how Democrats and progressives won widespread victories across Texas in backlash against MAGA extremism. That's a good thing for May 5th, 2025. So I know I was talking about something horrific in Texas, which they really trying to do something very illegal, but many progressives won throughout Texas. This has been happening nationwide since Trump took over. So it's very interesting that even in Texas there have been some good victories. Democrats and progressives won election all over the Lone Star State this weekend, Texas. So North Texas wins. In Tarrant County, voters completely shut out county GOP and Patriot mobile back candidates. Buck Kennedy of the Fort Worth Star Telegram trolling Tarrant County Republican Party chair Beau French on Twitter called it an 0-11 shutout of GOP candidates in the county's three largest cities. So those are good news. Some good things been happening. All the picks lost, including Tammy Nakamura, who also had backed by the True Texas Project, an anti-governmental group flagged by the Southern Poverty Law Center, failed in her bid for re-election to the Grapevine Colleyville School Board. Again, that's losing to Matt Fost. This is a really good thing. Keep in mind, this is not expected in Texas or Florida, Alabama, North Dakota, South Dakota, South Carolina, etc. So when it happens, it's a big deal. So it just kept happening in all places. Houston, which makes sense. Houston is more left leaning, it's one of the more strong Democrat hold. It's a strong Democrat hold in Texas. So, but anytime you win, school board elections, May elections, special state legislature elections, those make a huge difference county elections, like the county council members, like you want those wins because it makes a big difference. Because one way to help prevent the Republicans from winning over and over is by having educated populace. So if a population is educated about their rights and understand how Republicans are removing them and making their lives more miserable by making everything more expensive, you can even go to some federal lands. They try to sell our public lands to the highest bidder too. That's a different video I'll talk about on that topic later, but that's something else that's going on too. So people need to think that voting Republican is not a single issue anymore. It will impact everyone. And if you care about those public lands, like those nice federally protected parks, national parks that we love so much, Trump is trying to sell them to the highest bidders, and that becomes costly to go to our own land, to our own national parks. The federally owned right now, he's trying to sell those off. Keep that in mind when it comes to voting. Even if you don't care about women's rights, you don't care about rights of people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ plus community members, etc. If you do care about national parks, you want them to be either low cost or free, don't vote Republican. Simple as that. If you care about climate change, that's also important if you want to keep the health of those parks to keep going. So don't forget that when it comes to voting time, regardless where you live in the US. San Antonio races, also same thing. Uh, of the 22 candidates in the race, former Undersecretary of the US Air Force and longtime Democrat Honorable Gina Ortiz Jones drew a bit over 27% of the vote, while Republican Rolando Pabros, former tax secretary of the state under Governor Greg Abbott, reigned in the just under 70%. So there'll be a lot of wins, local wins, but very good wins. Austin area wins also. What now? So these local elections make a big difference. People think they don't matter. Who cares who's part of this board of education, county council, mayor, sheriff? Those things really makes a big difference in how your kids gonna grow up, how they're gonna be educated, what books may or may not be removed from the library, either the private school library or the town's local library. All these things matter. People don't think that in the long term, those little bit wins make a big difference, and that's what Republicans don't want. Because once they have more of a blue left-leaning state, even if it's just certain areas, if that keeps increasing and people want to stay in Texas, they'll fight more for that. So it's always a good thing. So we'll see how that keeps going. Now this is proclamation. So not executive order, but proclamation from Trump, straight from the White House, establishing Project Homecoming. So over the last 4 years, the U.S. has endured a full-scale invasion of aliens entering, meaning undocumented immigrants, entering and remaining in the country legally, causing a relentless onslaught of crime, vacancy, violence, and death in countless American communities. By the way, this is from May 9, 2025. Still very recent. So the whole point of this basically is just to increase more funding for ICE. Find the excuse to increase the number of ICE raids by increasing the number of ICE agents that are around, hire more people to keep going with the whole after just no due process, just arrest anybody, detain them, which is really just becomes kidnapping, and try to deport them as soon as possible with no due process. So that's basically what this is talking about. Again, this is not legal standing. It's not law. It's not even executive order. So it has even less of a legal standing than executive order. But this is what Trump's been trying to do. It's to give the Secretary of State and Secretary of Homeland Security more power to basically go after undocumented immigrants, regardless if they arrive in the airport or they're going through the immigration appointments, whatever the case may be, is to make it easier to go after these people no matter what. So that's the whole point of this proclamation. Next one's from May 9, 2025, not executive order, fighting overcriminalization in federal regulations. So the whole point of this is so that Trump can control regulations that are normally controlled by specific federal public bodies. So instead of giving the power to these federal government agencies and departments to regulate, Trump wants to reduce the regulation and have his own control of it as much as possible and take away the control from these federal government agencies and departments. He's already been doing this for a long time, defunding them so that he can dismantle them from the inside. So he cannot legally cannot get rid of, let's say, the Department of Education, but he can dismantle it by getting rid of funding and or pausing funding, not hire anybody, try to see if you can fire a lot of people. So then the whole agency or department becomes unstable and cannot function. So this is just to get rid of this regulation so that companies can just do whatever the hell they want, whether it will cause it to have cancer or not, and move on to the next project as soon as possible. Who cares about the workers if they will have no safety equipment, die of cancer because of the dangerous material they're breathing, and if can impact the people who live in those situations, those quarters, who live in those apartments, houses, going to those malls. Who cares? We have to do it as soon as possible. That's Trump deal. Just boom, be quick, get it done. No regulation or very little regulation. A lot of times, regulation to him is just pay me $10 million and you can do whatever you want. That's Trump's regulation. Put money in his pocket. So he wants us to stop any of those investigations being conducted by OSHA or being conducted, let's say, by EOC or being conducted by EPA, etc. That's the whole point. It's unfortunate. I don't agree with it. But yeah, same thing with wage and hour from USDOL, right? A lot of companies get investigated and fined, have to pay fines, penalties, they pay the workers back. He doesn't want that. So that's the whole point. That's why recently today, which I'll talk about in another video more detail, he wants no federal workers or workers in general not to have pay holidays. He thinks that we have too many pay holidays, especially public servants. We don't. But that's the deal of Trump to make you work every day of the year, no pay holidays, no vacation, you just work until you die. Because that's what people want. That's what Trump claims. So basically, that's the whole idea here of this executive order. Now go on. I scroll down so you guys can read it more, but everything's gonna be in my description as per usual. So it's not gonna be anything, new about that. But let me know what you guys think about everything discussed today, especially the executive order at the end of this video. And if you agree with the Democrats, the House Democrats, uh, regarding of wasting time with impeachment procedures when you really don't have the numbers. I disagree with them, but let me know what you think. Maybe we can have a debate. And whatever else I discussed today about abortion rights in Texas and this specific having abortion outside Texas, even though you're a Texas resident, if Texas should be allowed to prosecute those people. It's against the Constitution, but let me know what you guys think. And the winnings, the many winnings from the progressive Democrats, at least in local elections in Texas. I would like to know about that too. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Watch this at TikTok, follow us on TikTok. And again, I have the Patreon. You can be part of it. It's $1 per month just to support, $3 for exclusive content that I'll be working on soon. All right, guys, I hope you have a good day.